Hi, so I don't really have a way of seeing who's watching this right now. I can see that I have a viewer, and I see that Paul asked a question. So I'm assuming it's Paul in here watching, but I'm going to go ahead and answer his questions either way. Um, Let me open up Notepad real quick so I can do an example. Um, take a second. Okay, so Paul's question was about if we have a scanner. We'll call it that for a lot of the stuff you can do input.next, input.nextInt, things like this. But there is no next.char. If you're trying to get a char value, the easiest thing to do, and I mean, it depends on what your scanner is actually reading. If it's reading from system.in and you're just typing things as a string, what you can do is take input.next. This value right here is going to return a string. So you're going to have a string value from that. So if you have that input.next and do char at, for instance, if you did 0, that's going to return the first char in the string. So if I ran this on the console and this part right here, if it got to this part in the code and I had, input.next as one of the commands, if I can highlight this, and then I typed in hello, normally whatever I saved input.next in is going to return hello as a string. If I add that .char at 0 message, all it's going to return is the single character. And if it's a 0 indexed array, that you can think of the string like that as an array. So that char at 0 is going to be the first one. If I did char at 1 there, it would return that E, whatever the second one, and so on. This would be the 0, the 1, the 2, just like any other array. So that's an easy way, especially if you're just trying to return the first value of a string. And I mean, this would work if the user only typed in a single character. So if they only typed in, like if you're asking for a yes or no input and they only typed in Y or that, it would return that Y as a single character. I'm going to check. Nothing new on Piazza, no emails. I don't know if you can see, there should be like a little grid button at the top of your Hangouts screen that it looks like just a 3x3 like grid of boxes. It's a little button. If you press that, you should be able to open up the Q&A feature. It's like a blue text box that just has Q&A in it. And using that, you can ask questions. And I think that's like the only way to communicate with me on Hangouts. So hopefully that helps, that you can tell me whether that helped or not, or if you have more questions. In the meantime, I'm reading through the Project 3 guidelines to see if I can kind of pinpoint exactly what. Oh, yeah, I see. Yeah, so for most of those, you're just reading in an int. So you can do, instead of doing this char at, or instead of doing next, you can just do next int. And that should work fine. And you can save that, as available variable. If you just do in x equals that, then x is going to be, whatever that they type in. For the ones where you're trying to figure out what school they're doing, that you need either an E, an L, or an F, you should be able to do just that chart at. Is it 0 for all of them? Yeah, it's just that first character in the string. If you're having trouble with the Q&A feature, if for some reason that's not working, go ahead and send me an email just so I can know whether I'm answering the questions that you have, or so there's some form of communication. Because I don't know if maybe the Q&A feature isn't working right now, or I just can't see it. But go ahead and leave that up. No problem for that. I hope it helped. If you have any more questions, just let me know. But I think that should fix any problems you're having with reading just that single character. But like I said, if there's anything else, just go ahead and ask. Um, so let's see. If we set this up like this, basically you just need two separate variables to do what you're saying. So if you set one C character, that's the one you're actually going to use at the end, and then temp, and take that temp variable and read in that first character, run your if statement, like you said, um, where you want it to do equals ignore case. Yeah, and there's a couple different ways you could do this. That if you do, temp um, equals f, or f, stuff like that, or you could use that ignore case method. There's a bajillion different ways to do that. But then at the end of that if statement, or what am I doing here? Run that as like your conditional, and then uh, set C equals to temp after that. That should do about what you're asking. But yeah, you just kind of need two variables because in order to do anything, to run any tests on that, you're going to need to save your scanner character, what you're reading into a variable. But then if you don't want it to actually save to what you're using in your program, just use a temp variable, or you call it scan or temp or something like that. And then don't save it to the one you're actually going to use unless it passes your tests here. Um, so the system.exit, when you start learning about other languages, especially C, some of the more, I guess I should like primitive languages, um, pretty much every program you would run would end within what's called an exit status. And so when you have that system.exit command, I think you only use this whenever there's an error in Java. I can't remember if it's 0 or 1. That means it's good for Java. I can look that up real quick, but I'm pretty sure that you use that whenever there's an error. You basically, you're telling the shell, you're telling whatever's running your program that there's a problem, and we're going to end it right here and make sure we don't create any more bugs or anything. In terms of what that message says to the other programs, it's not all that important right now. And honestly, I don't even know the full extent of what you could do with that. But basically, you can think of this as saying, normally, if your program runs in Java, you don't have to have a like finish statement. Whenever you get to the end and you have that last, parentheses, that's not parentheses, curly bracket, that's like the end of your program. This is basically saying, I want to end it before that. I don't want the rest of my code to finish because I know there's some sort of error. So we're just going to quit the program right here where it is and tell whatever system was running the program that it ended with this specific error code, or exit status, which is saying that there was an error. I don't think in 1.16 you guys manipulate that, but you can take that error code and do different things with that and print out system messages based on what that error code is. But I don't think you guys get into any of that, and you shouldn't need to do anything beyond this statement right here and placing it in the correct spot. So it's I'm trying to think of a good example when you might use that. I don't think divide by 0 is a good example. Let's say you write a method and you want to, okay, divide by 0 might work. You want to take 2 integers or 2 doubles, 2 numbers, whatever, and you're just going to divide, return x divided by y. And I'm not fully writing this out, obviously. It's just kind of pseudocode. What you can do with stuff like that, and you don't have to, but it's just kind of the way things work. Rather than having your compiler return, like if y was a 0 right here, there's really no check for that. And so if the user somehow ended up putting, a number here and then a 0 in here, the program would crash. And if this is in the middle of, some other complex program that there's a lot of stuff going on, you don't want it to crash because of something like that. So in certain cases, there's ways you can catch this error, and rather than just doing that system.exit command, and you guys actually might get into that in 1.16, but you could have an if statement that, if y equals 0, then you print out some error message and system.exit. And so you cancel out and quit the program before you ever caused that crash. That right now it doesn't necessarily really seem like it does anything, because running this divide by 0 also causes a program to quit. And end prematurely. So it ends basically at the same point. This is just a much cleaner way to do that, and that cleanliness can be useful later on for other things. And getting into the habit of just knowing where you might need to end the program, or where something might happen that you either need to deal with it or just exit out before something crashes. Can be useful later on whenever you're actually, rather than just quitting the whole entire program, you have some sort of error handling here besides the system.exit. And this has other applications too, but that's the most simple. Like I said, communicating with whatever system you're running. If you have, a complex program kind of in multiple different systems at the same time, then it might just quit your Java program and keep running whatever else is running. But yeah, basically it just jumps to the end and says stop here, don't go on, and it returns that exit status of 1, which I think Java takes as just a general error. I'm not sure exactly what that message sends, but it should be easy enough to figure out. Excuse me. Let's see, anything else on that I can think of? No, I think that's pretty much it. That's the basics of that system.exit. Oops, I should have selected this before. Alrighty, I'm signing off office hours. But if you have any more questions, any more follow-up, feel free to email me anytime, and I should be able to get back to you. If you need these examples still, I don't think you should, but if you do for whatever reason, just email me and I can save them and get them to you. But thanks. Bye.